Let's start off with a basic square to work with. You've got the fill and stroke. You go to fill and you can fill it in. Stroke is the outline. So that's where you can change the color of the outline or the width of the outline. So let's say it's a 0.125, eighth of an inch. Gotta select inches. Say we have the outline as an eighth of an inch. And then actually let's turn, so we'll turn the fill off, and now you can see the outline. See up here, this is in millimeters. If you go to document properties, file, document properties, now we can say, like, let's say we want to use inches today. We can set the display units to inches, and then let's set our page size or our workpiece size to 6 by 6 inches. And there's no save button, so just X out of it. All right. So this square, let's make, right now the width is 3.1 inches and the height's 4.1 inches. Let's make it a 1 inch by 1 inch square. Oh, I've got the aspect ratio locked. So let's unlock that and then put in 1 by 1 inch square. And now I can lock that aspect ratio if I want to keep it. All right, so right now, let's fill it in and we'll demonstrate a raster engraving. So we'll engrave this 1 inch square. So we'll go to fill it in. We're gonna save this as an SVG. Now we need to save it as a PDF. Let's open up our engraving PDF. We'll hit print and properties. And first off, notice that the document size is 8.5 by 11 here. Change that in the properties. We were not doing center engraving this time. We will deselect send to laser. We have a CO2 laser, not a fiber laser. And on this one, we'll do a raster since we plan to engrave. And then here's where you can set your piece size to match what you chose or selected in Inkscape. And we want a raster engraving. We'll check the manual and we'll pick, let's do 65, 45. Works nicely. Most people like to go from the bottom up, and a lot of people, you can choose what you want on this dithering, but a lot of people like Jarvis or Stucky. It gives a little bit smoother profile. And you notice that vector is grayed out. If we chose vector here, then you could change the vector settings. But since we're doing raster, or if you did combine, you could do both. It would do the engraving first and then the vector cut second. And then notice you can select, or you can change both options. But we'll do raster and 65, 45, and okay. And now you'll see that our document size is 6 by 6. Always make sure you have actual size selected here. Otherwise, it can give you an error. And then print. Let's go to the Epilogue Job Manager. Go to Jobs, and then double click on our Engrave job. And like I say, there's other things that you can change in this piece of software, but for today, we are only going to verify that our raster engraving speed and power is set to 65 and 45 that we chose, and we'll hit quick print. And that will send the job to the laser. So we've turned the laser on with this switch here. And if you take a look at the menus, you can see that job 2 has come up, Engrave. So we can cycle down through the menu. So we'll have to set, so whenever we turn the laser on, the table went pretty far down, so let's raise that up. We'll go to, you can see the up and down arrows. The further you press the joystick up, the faster it goes. If you just barely push it, it goes really slow, and that's how you can fine tune it. We'll raise up the table to just barely touch off. Like I say, if you barely push the joystick, it goes really slow. You don't have to do this tapping thing. Got our focus set. Always, 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 always put that back. Otherwise it could fall down in this hole, which isn't the end of the world, but it's just one more hassle you don't want to deal with. All right, so we've got the height set. Get this in a good spot. So we've got our height set. You can press, so see how it says 0.18? That's 0.18 above the zeroed Z. If we press enter, or if we press in on the joystick, it resets that to 0, which you don't necessarily have to do, but why not? Now this one we have to do. Let's go down to, you can see left and right and forward and aft, and you can see that it's not 0, 0. We'll turn on this light, which shows you, helps you aim the laser. You can see that light that comes on. That helps you aim. We'll drive this to the back corner, and that's where we want to designate our XY home. So that'll be 0, 0. So now you can see it says 0.08x and negative 0.02y. If we press enter, now you can see it zeroed out the XY, and that's our home. So since we did not select center engraving earlier, then it assumes that the top left of your page in Inkscape is where you designate the XY home. So we've got our table height, or our Z-axis set. We've got our fore and aft and left and right. The X and Y axis is set to 0, 0. This looks like a speedometer, so that's an easy way to remember its speed. So our raster speed is set to 65. And then if you go down one more, that's power. And that's raster power we set to 45%. And then we don't use the settings on a normal day-to-day basis. Just a review of the buttons. This is play, pause, and then resets it back to the home, back to 0, 0. So you can start the job over. And then this button turns the light on and off. Now, with the lid open, it's not actually going to fire the laser if we hit play. So it's a way of doing a dry run just to see if it's lined up the way it should be. So we're going to hit the play button. And really what we're looking for here is just to see that it's lined up generally in the right area. It goes further left and further right than the actual job, so that's normal. All right, looks like it's in the right spot, so we'll hit pause, and then we'll reset it back to the start. We will turn on our exhaust fan, and we'll close the lid. We'll hit play. So that's what the engraving looks like. So we've engraved this square. Now let's show the different settings in Inkscape for how to cut out the square. So select your object and we'll turn off the fill. And then stroke paint, stroke style, we want to set this to pixels. And we're going to make this line really, really small, and that's what tells the laser it's a cut and not an engrave. So now it looks like it disappeared, you can't really see it, but if we highlight it again and then zoom in, you can see that it's there. It's just really small, really thin line. Alright, so let's save that as a SVG. Let's do vector cut. And then we'll save it as PDF. Now let's select a vector cut PDF. And so you can see the line that it will cut. We'll go to print. That brings up the Epilogue laser as the printer. And we'll go to properties. Notice the document size is the wrong shape right now. Go to properties. And again, we're not doing center engraving this time. We don't want to send it straight to the laser. You could, but generally we don't. CO2 laser. This time we're doing a vector cut. And then we'll set 6x6. In this case, it really doesn't matter, but because we know where it's going to cut, where it fits on our workpiece. But we're doing vector settings now. Let's check the book for, that's an 1/8 inch material size. So for vector cut, 1/8 of an inch is 10 speed, 100 power. And the frequency is 10. And that's it. We'll hit OK. And our document size is 6x6. We've got actual size selected. And we'll hit print. And now let's bring up the Epilogue job manager. So double click on our job, make sure our vector cutting speed and power are correct, and then hit quick print. And that sends the job to the laser. You can see, you can't see the whole file name on the top. So if you do different versions of the same file, it's best to put the version number in the beginning of the file name instead at the end, because you can't see it at the end. All right, for a vector cut, want to make sure and have the airflow going, and that air is going to come out of this tube. Set it at 30 psi, and that's going to help mitigate fire potential. So you can set the pressure with this knob, and you're looking for tool pressure at 30 psi. All right, let's do a dry run. I'll hit play with the lid open. And now you could adjust your workpiece, and you could keep doing dry runs and keep adjusting your workpiece until it's exactly the way you want it. But it's good, so let's shut the lid. All right, let's cut it. There it is.